Welcome to today's coffee and tea. We are talking about getting started in wildlife rehabilitation. And we have a moderator and three speakers who have some really good input and suggestions and ideas and stories about how you can get started in wildlife rehabilitation. So I will tell you just a little bit about our panelists. Oh, and I am Kai. I'm Executive Director of IWRC and happy to see you all here today. Carly is the natural resource instructor for 11th and 12th grade students in the Lenawi Intermediate School District in Michigan in the US. Her students actually work to obtain the basic wildlife rehabilitation certificate offered by IWRC, and she's working on founding a new wildlife rehabilitation center. Uh, Lesedi grew up in Joburg in Johannesburg, surrounded by urban life, and was really wondering about what does nature look like when it's really allowed to thrive. That curiosity turned into purpose, and she spent years working in avian research with a master's degree in conservation biology, and has published scientific paper. She's currently publishing a scientific paper on stress physiology, and then authoring another one on resource use and southern pied babblers. So a lot of exciting things there in terms of field-based research in avian ecology and environmental change. And Antonia is a wildlife rescuer and founder of Nativas, a youth-led initiative advancing girls' leaderships in conservation. She works at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Chile on reducing trafficked parrots in Andean wildlife, and also does wildlife care and also field ornithology in Canada. And today, our moderator is Sheena Dale. Sheena is one of IWRC's board members, as well as our interim secretary at the moment. And Sheena is a longtime wildlife person based in South Africa. So, Sheena, I will turn this over to you, and I'll be here if anybody needs anything. Also, note, actually, yes, we are being recorded. Good. We are being recorded, and parts of the recording may be available after for viewing for members.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Kai, for the introductions. And thank you so much for our panelists making time from across the globe to be able to be here with us today. So, without any further ado, let's jump straight in and ask the most important question. How did you get started? Lesedi, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Um, I got started into conservation while in high school. I always dreamed about working outdoors. The office life was never really appealing to me. So then I applied to a university to do at University of South Africa to study nature conservation. And while I was studying, that's when I started volunteering. And then that opportunity actually introduced me to many other opportunities. With the little experience that I had, I was able to put my foot out there and just grab whatever opportunity I had. But yeah, that's basically just how I started with volunteering and putting myself out there.
Awesome. And Sonia, your backstory.
Well, same as Lissetti, I started by volunteering when I was 13. My first experience was with marine wildlife in the coast of Chile. So I got to work with really like important species there, such as penguins. And I think those first experiences with the native wildlife of my country really made me realize of this passion that I had for so long because I always liked animals when I was little. And then just from there, I started trying to find other volunteering opportunities closer to my house. And then I just stayed in my territory in the Andes Mountains. So I started volunteering with parrots mostly. And since there, I moved with my family here to Canada. And I've also explored a little bit more of my passion for ornithology. So I started to learn about bird banding and different other initiatives that are similar to wildlife rehabilitation.
Amazing. And Carly, you have a slightly different story, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of really just dipping my toe in the water here. So my program, I teach 11th and 12th graders natural resources. And through the state of Michigan, we were able to approve the basic wildlife rehabilitation certification through IWRC as one of our state approved credentials. And I did a little background work to align that with all of our teaching standards and things. But it's really exciting to see students get passionate about it. I get a lot of students who are really into the wildlife side of our natural resources program, want to learn more about it, maybe want to start their own rehab facilities and things, or just learn about the animals in general and their welfare. So it's been a really great opportunity to do that, but I only just am getting started, got my basic certification within the last year, and have taken a few other classes through IWRC. We're looking at starting a program at the school to do wildlife rehab, but figuring out how to fund that and all of those sorts of things are kind of interesting. But my doctorate's in soil microbiology. So very out of my wheelhouse. Usually my head's kind of underground more than on top of it. But my father was a veterinarian growing up too. So that gave me maybe a little bit of an edge.
And I think the most common thread that we're picking up here is a lot of people are starting this journey through volunteering and volunteering experience. Carly, for you, do you find that your students are finding opportunities to do volunteering as well or not?
Yeah, so we have a lot of great local rehabbers, and I think that's something about taking the IWRC classes in person that's really helped is it networks them in with all of our local people, so they kind of get to know who's in the area and who they might be able to volunteer with more easily. Because outside of that, really before I got more introduced and more familiar, if I had students interested in animals, I might say, well, you can go to the Humane Society and maybe work with like domestic cats and dogs. But this has really opened up a whole new world for them.
That's fantastic to hear. And Antonia, having such a different background between growing up in Chile and I live in Canada, what are the differences that you're noticing when it comes to conservation opportunities and research opportunities for those of us trying to break into the industry or are very new in our career?
Well, mostly I feel like in Chile, well, like everywhere else, but especially in my country, wildlife rehabilitation is very new, like either to the citizens and also for like professionals that are already in conservation. So like in terms of practices, I can see how in Chile we are still sort of like experimenting and learning and adapting and seeing how can we include more people into rehabilitation. But that also makes like the standards and like the experience between each facility vary a lot. And in Canada, from what I've seen, rehabilitation practices are like more consolidated. So it might be like a little bit easier to find certain like I don't know, like opportunities that you're looking for here. I feel like there are more, I don't know, like consistent protocols, access to training and resources, and this makes like wildlife care feel more standardized, and therefore the process of getting started feels also like a little bit more defined than in Chile. But I've also noticed it like how community involvement can be a little bit less personal or direct than in Chile. So yeah, I feel like both places have things to learn from each other in that aspect.
Absolutely, and that's a very valid point. Community engagement is an increasingly important topic in conservation circles and wildlife rehab circles, where in, taking hold of indigenous knowledge and really including people that understand the landscape and living alongside animals is an incredibly important viewpoint to have. So it's interesting to see how you're having that juxtaposition between Chile and Canada, slightly different. perspectives there. And Lesedi, for South Africa, how did you get started with finding volunteer opportunities? Did you find that it was very easy for you to find opportunities, given that we're often sort of wildlife center, or did you struggle with finding opportunities?
So finding opportunities was both rewarding and challenging at the same time. It was rewarding in the sense that, the university that I was studying with at the time was providing such opportunities to students who were interested, students who did not have any experience at all. So I guess I just ran with that opportunity. And it was rewarding also because conservation is like, everybody knows everybody, you know. So if you work with one person and you guys have, you know, like sort of like a good working connection, they are able to, you know, plug you with opportunities and tell you, you know, where the jobs are, or, you know, they kind of provide mentorship as well. But it was challenging in the aspect that I'm from Joburg and we don't have a lot of natural spaces around. So when I had to volunteer, it was usually out of the province, which can be hard to maneuver when you're still young and you're starting out in the industry. It was also competitive in the sense that the industry as a whole is very competitive in the sense that there's a lot of passionate people, there's a lot of people who want to get into the conservation space, and there's very little funding. So with the opportunities that you get, it's either they're not paid, or if they do pay, then it's not a lot for like an entry level job. So that was also, you know, a problem that's also still there. And then the last one was underrepresentation. You know, conservation here in South Africa has been mostly male dominated. If it's not male dominated, it's white dominated. So it was hard to find like people that you can relate to, you know, people that you have similar historical backgrounds with. But I'm happy to say, I mean, even with the panel, you know, it's mostly women, meaning it's getting more and more inclusive as we go. But yeah, those are the challenges that I've come across, and the rewarding side of it as well.
Yeah, representation in conservation across the globe is something that more and more people are taking note of, and as it should be. And I think it ties in very nicely with Antonia's points of Indigenous knowledge and, you know, community engagements and having these serious conversations with those that are really on the ground with wildlife and understand. So it's a challenge I understand coming from Johannesburg myself, although on a slightly different platform. But breaking into the field was incredibly difficult being female and young. You have to really prove yourself repeatedly in order to get opportunities. So I'm glad to see that we can have a panel like this of young independent females that are able to speak with knowledge about getting into these type of industries. And Antonia, I know you have your own NGO. Would you like to describe how that came about and what inspired you to take that leap?
Yeah, so Nativas is something I started very recently with other girls. So it's like a collective sort of mission. And well, the project mainly aims to like solve some of the difficulties I encountered when I was starting in rehab, especially with the lack of scientific spaces where girls are welcome, which is basically like the basis of getting started. So no matter their background, we believe that it should be like a little bit more easier. Everyone should feel welcome in rehabilitation in Chile because people are needed. We do need like different perspectives.